Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Storytellers. Today, or hopefully tonight, my guest is my fellow professional Art Thibert, who has a new project out, Black and White, Man versus Machine. And if you watch our show, The Professionals, you'll know that Art is always late, and this is no different today from my show. So I'm floating around here by myself, waiting for the T-Bear to show up. Let's take a peek, see who's here first, and maybe he'll pop in. Hyper Kaiju is here. Hello. Pedro Ang. Stripling Vaughn. Excellent. Pop Culture Avenger is here too. Shadowhawk. 24 Eyes. And that's it right now as far as comments are going. The idea was to talk about Art's project, but since he is not here, we'll talk about mine. See what I did there? So Alien Alamo is moving along very, very nicely. I just finished page 40 today of 54 pages of story content. So I'm 14 pages out from finishing the book. I might add a couple extra pages. I'm laying out the whole rest of the book right now, and so I want to take a look and see how I can pace it. If I need more pages, I'm adding more pages. It's as simple as that. Because I have enough room, because it's a 64-page book, and it was going to be filled with other extras and stuff. So if I need to add more story content pages, I can do that. But it's coming along really, really nice. Color pages are coming in from Greg. He's got through page 20, I believe, colored up. And I shared some of those with backers and did an art drop on the social media outlets today. So you guys can take a look at those. And we'll be hopefully fulfilling in December. And then I'll be moving on to the next project, which is not part of my my typical my monster line that I've been doing. It's the giant-sized two-fisted manly tales. And I spoke with Michael Golden yesterday. He'll be getting on that cover pretty soon. And I'm going to do a mailing list ahead of time. And I want everybody to get on this mailing list, because everybody that gets on the mailing list is going to get a membership card it's like your man card. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you can only get it when you sign up for it. So that'll be a cool incentive to sign up on the mailing list. Well, anyway, it looks like the T-Bear man is in, so let's pop him into the stream. Hello, Art.
Hey, did somebody say two-fisted?
I did. Oops, where'd you go?
There we go. Yeah. Get your lights out.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. Your Black and White Volume 2 is doing wonderful.
Yeah, my wife said we just got a backer as I was coming upstairs to do the show here. So
nice.
Cool. Yeah.
We're at $39,011 with 474 backers and 24 days left.
I think if you refresh that, I think it just went up.
Well, let's do that. Don't want to shortchange you.
At least based on what my wife told me.
Yes, you picked up another backer. It's 39,088.
Yes.
475 backers. Beautiful.
Sweet baby Christmas.
Excellent. So now, do you have another show at 8 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
But we can go a little bit over. I told the guys that, it might be 8:30, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll start off with your background and stuff, which is what the Storytellers is about, and then we'll go in and we'll go through the campaign and we'll talk about that.
Okay, great.
Okay. So we started around the same time, right? Early 80s, early mid 80s?
Yeah, that's the funniest thing about this. You and I are the old men of comicsgate.
We are. We're separated by you're October, right?
Yes.
Yeah, October, November, December, January, February, March. We're 5 months apart, but Art always gets all the shit for, like he started drawing on a tablet, and what they mean by that is stone, stuff
Yeah,
like
so
that.
yeah. I think the reason you are exempt is because they're afraid you're going to kick their asses.
That could be. I might throttle them.
Yeah.
So what was your first professional job?
My first in comic books, I worked in as an illustrator for about maybe 2.5 years, and so it kind of crossed over into my comic book work. But it was assisting Jim Valentino on Normal Man for Renegade
Oh,
Press, and then we went into was it Apple, which is the Wendy and Richard Pinney publishing company, and
okay.
we did Myth Adventures. So that was more like that was an official job. That was like inker. So that was probably my first really official work where I got credit and everything. Before
Okay.
then, I was kind of like a studio assistant and things like that. I still felt like I was an assistant, even though I got inker credit because Jim was very generous with the knowledge. I really needed a mentor, and especially in California, like you're more East Coast, but in California there wasn't a lot of comic book people. There were storyboarders.
Hmm.
There were Hollywood guys that did cartoons and stuff like that, but not a lot of comic book guys. And if there were, most of them did both. They did storyboards, because they used to be seasonal, in animation. So you would work storyboards for that season, and then you'd go into comic books, and then you'd go back into, because the storyboards paid you better, but you still needed to make ends meet. And that's what Jim Valentino was doing at the time. So he was jumping back and forth.
Did you ever meet Dave Stevens? Because he was out there, right?
Yeah. I met him a couple times, but mostly just as a fan, going to Comic Cons and stuff like that. But I do remember having a conversation with him when he sold Rocketeer to Disney. And it always stuck with me because he goes, yeah, I made enough money to pay for a brand new house. I paid for it in cash. And at the time I was like, oh, holy shit, that's so cool. And now I think, that probably wasn't a lot of money. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like a couple hundred, like probably like $200,000 or whatever, which, 25 years, 30 years ago, well,
Sure.
actually close to 40 years ago, it seemed like a lot of money.
Our fellow bro, Dan Fragaboom, is drawing while the show is on. He says he's
Daniel, my
drawing while
brother.
listening.
Yeah.
Representing, Dan. Excellent. Yeah, I'm quite sure that the deal that Disney gave them, gave Dave Stevens, was not some sweetheart deal.
No. And I remember him holding on to this. He was like, yeah, but I retained publishing rights. And I was like I said, like all that stuff went over my head at the time. But then I think back, it's like, well, that's great. So he could keep publishing the book and make, pennies, while Disney is really cleaning up on Rocketeer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie.
Wow. So then you moved on to Image Comics, right? Or did you transition over to Marvel and DC first?
Yeah, there was working in the independents. I don't know how you started, Graham, if you went right into the mainstream Marvel DC. Did you work independently at first?
Well, sort of yes and no. My first sales were for DC Comics for their new talent showcase. But then after that, so technically my first sale is DC Comics. But then after that, I went to Eclipse and did independent stuff for them.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld was, I think he was part of that new talent showcase or whatever it was. Yeah. Or was it there was a bonus book thing too. Was there a bonus book that maybe that was a couple years later where they were taking a chance on new talent and they were running like a bonus story in the, can you hear that?
Yeah. What is that? Is it a dog squeaky toy?
Yeah. I keep trying to mute it, but man, it's so freaking loud. But anyway, so, I was working independently, and anybody who's worked for independents, it's really hard to make a living because there just isn't any money. The publishing companies have very little money, and so Jim and I we're plugging along on, it was called Myth Adventure. So we're plugging along on the book. So we'd always get our upfront money. And at first we'd get the back end. So you get paid upfront. And then once the publishers got their money back, from the retailers and stuff like that, then they could allocate your funds. But nobody, they didn't have that much money at the time. So that's kind of how they worked it. And so the back end money stopped coming in for Jim and I. And so then I was just like, so how do I do this? I'm kind of dependent on this money now. I'm out on my own, paying for my apartment and all that. And so, you go to shows, you talk to people, and they go, "Oh, there's Albino."
Albino Thunder Buns, thank you, sir, for the $5 super chat. Art is my co-writing storyteller hero, and Graham is my gym-crushing storyteller spirit animal. What a show to listen to while working out.
Sweet, yeah.
We're glad you're here, sir.
Yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better, Joe. But anyways, like, long story short, so it was kind of like everything was pointed into the mainstream. And the only reason I went mainstream is because they paid, and they paid on time. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I needed at the time. I just needed to survive. So then I put like a real simple portfolio together, and I started showing it around, and I showed it to Jim Shooter. And then Jim Shooter just said, "Looks good, but you need a little polish. You need a little bit, of time, education." He said, "Come to New York." He said, "You can work with Ramita and the Raiders in the bullpen." And he said, for a couple months. And he said, "I think that will be what you need." And so I was like, cool. So, oh gosh, it's so weird. So I was just a really naive kid. So I'm thinking, okay, I got invited to New York City. I've never been there before. So I saved up enough money to go. I went, I had no appointments set up, Graham. I had nothing. I just went to New York City. And so I stayed with Craig Anderson, who was working as Ralph Macchio's assistant at Marvel. And he had an apartment, just a shitty apartment in Hell's Kitchen off 46th. And so I stayed there, and I just went up to Jim Shooter's office. I had to beg to get in because I had no appointments. So I had to beg to get in. So I looked pretty pathetic. So I went up to Jim's, assistant or secretary, and I told her I'm here to see, Jim Shooter. And she's going, "Do you have an appointment?" And I'm like, "No, but he told me when he was in California that, to come by and everything." She's like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's a country bumpkin." Even though I grew up in California, you know what I mean? You never think about that. It's like, I may as well grew up, in some backwoods Kentucky, nothing against Kentucky, but how the story goes. And so, so then she must've felt really bad. So she goes, "I'll go talk to him." So he goes, I never saw Jim. And so she goes, talks to Jim. She comes back. She goes, "He doesn't remember any of this." And I was crushed.
Oh,
I was like, "But he told me." You're just a kid. You go, like, "He told me." And she goes, "Okay, I'll go talk to him again." And so, because I just looked so sad. And so she comes back. She goes, "Well, he's got something for you to do. You can work as an intern." And I go, "Oh, cool, as an intern." I go, "How much does that pay?" And she goes, "It doesn't pay anything." She goes, "But you're here at Marvel, and you can kind of learn and stuff like that. And that's kind of the idea." And I go, "But I need money. I need to live. I'm living here. I need money." And she goes, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you." So that was my kind of Marvel, entry story. There's a lot more detail, but
wait. There's way too many questions to pass up right here. So he, I understand where you're coming from. If I was a kid, in my 20s or something, he told me, "You need to come out here and be a Ramita Raider." That sounds like a job offer. Like he's saying, "Come on out and you'll work in the bullpen with Ramita. You'll get paid a stipend or whatever, and you'll learn on the job and polish you up, and then you'll be ready for Marvel."
Right.
But that wasn't the case.
No.
So you show up, and he's like, "Art who? I don't know this kid." I say the same thing to every kid that shows up.
That's pretty much it, right? Yeah.
But you had the ball to get on a plane and fly out to New York. Now, how did you know Craig Anderson to be able to hook up and stay at his crib?
in the day, like as a pretty hardcore partier, and so is Jim Valentino. And so it's just kind of like when you go to these cons and stuff like that, there's kind of like these like-minded people that find each other. And so Craig was, he's a dope smoker, dope smoker. So is Valentino. So we were just, kind of hanging out. And so Craig, in the old days of San Diego Con, you just crash with people. Like there was no kind of like order to anything. There was just guys going there. We were all broke and poor and just trying to, make good comic books. And so he needed a place to stay. We were out partying. He needed a place to stay. So Jim and I were like, "Hey, you can stay with us." So he stayed with us the whole show. And so once again, mistakenly came up and said, "Anything you need, Art." He goes, "Just let me know." So, "Hey, Craig, I'm going to be in New York City. Can you put me up for a couple weeks?" And yeah, he did.
Well, he made good on it. That's cool.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay there in New York as an intern?
I think it was a couple months. Like in those days, like you really had to show them, like they needed you to make the deadline. Like that was really stressed. I don't know, like if it was like when you broke in, it was like you need to hit these deadlines regardless. Like it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like they wanted quality, but that wasn't stressed as much as like just make the deadline, get things done. And so I was fortunate because that same day I was telling you about when I met Jim Shooter and that whole kerfuffle. I ended up meeting a friend from California. His name was Art Nichols. He was an inker. And there was kind of like a West Coast, not a West Coast, but Northern California, Southern California. So there was Art Nichols and Art Adams, who were kind of Northern California, San Francisco, stuff like that. And so there was like Liefeld, me, there was Valentino and a few others that were, Southern California. And every once in a while we would, there would be conventions where we'd cross over. And so I hung out with those guys before they broke into the business. And so I lost touch with Art. But while I was in Marvel, when my hopes and things just been dashed by Jim Shooter, he's like, "Hey, Art." And I was like, "What?" He was in the office there and he had his portfolio and he was dropping off pages. So apparently he had been working professional in that year or so that I had lost contact with him. And then I told him my story. He goes, "Don't worry about it." He goes, "I'm going to go over to DC Comics." He goes, "You want to share a cab?" And so he knew he could get me in the office, but he never, like in those days, man, nobody spelled everything out. It was just like, "You want to go along with me?" You know what I mean? Right. He didn't go, "I think I can get you a job or I can get you an interview." Like it was none of that. It was just like, "Come hang out, man." And so, yeah.
Make contacts.
Right. And so that's what we did. And I went in and I talked to Bob Greenberger and it was a complete 360 or whatever, 180 or whatever. And so then Bob Greenberger looked at my portfolio and said, he goes, "What do you want to do?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What do you want to do here?" And I go, "Well, anything you have to offer." Like I wanted to scream out Batman, Graham. I wanted to just like every part of my being want to go, "I want Batman," but I knew
that's always the right answer.
Well, I thought I'd play it humble. So I was just like, "Anything you got," that kind of thing. He said, "Well, I have some Star Trek Who's Who." So this is during the when they were doing the Who's Who, and then Marvel had the Marvel Universe stuff. And so I said, "I can give you a few characters," because they wanted to try you out, see if you could do it, see if you could make deadlines and things like that. So yeah, he gave me like 3 or 4 different entries. And so I went and I didn't have any artboard. I didn't have any tools. I didn't have anything. So I had to find, just walking around New York City, trying to find, art, places to pick up supplies and stuff. I went home, well, not home, to Craig's apartment. And I just kind of drew it on. He had a little coffee table. So I'm sitting on the floor and I'm just drawing my pages, on the coffee table. And I banged out all 4 of them. And I went back the next day. I was so like, I got to prove myself. I know you know how this feels, man. You're like, I got this opening. I'm going to fucking nail it, right? And so I did. I brought it back there. He dug it. So he gave me some real Who's Who, like the actual, DC Universe stuff. And I did Nemesis and Wotan the Destroyer and like some other like characters. And then the next thing he's like, you want to do the Warlord, a monthly? And I was like, hell yeah. And I was following Dan Jurgens on Warlord. Yeah.
Now, was he offering that to pencil?
Yeah. I
Oh,
was penciling all those entries too. Like I was penciling, all the Who's Who stuff.
okay. Oh, so
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you had started off as a pencil. Were you inking your own stuff too, or did somebody?
Yeah,
ink your work?
yeah, it was weird. Like I just a completionist, like just instinctively. So every time I drew something, I inked it, even as a kid. So yeah, so I did that. And also just to go back a little bit, the same day that I got the work at DC Comics, Ralph Macchio called me. He said, I have ink work for you. So I actually technically started off as an inker at Marvel and a penciler at DC on the same day.
Wow.
So yeah, so I was crushed at the beginning part of the day, like just devastated, and then by the end of the day, the evening, it was like I was on cloud nine. Yeah.
I know this feeling when you're looking for work and you go up to the offices. I had a similar thing one time, where I went up to DC. Now I had been there many years. I had exclusive contracts with them, and those contracts had run out, and things were changing up there. And there was nothing for me. So I was up there with Chuck. Chuck and I were just trying to pitch stuff and figure out things. So we got into a cab, went down to Marvel. And again, I went into Ralph Macchio's office, and he handed me 4 issues of Spider-Girl to illustrate. And you walk out of there like, yes, you're so excited that, you got work. That it's the bane of every freelancer is the constant search of work.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now you have the work, right? So it's almost like they called your bluff, and especially in the early days, because you didn't know if you could do it or not. You know what I mean? Like you had to prove yourself. So you had no experience. You had nothing to fall back on. So you're just like every waking hour. I remember like shortly after, I got back to California, I lost that apartment and had to sadly move back in with my parents. And so my room, everything was gone. So I ended up sleeping in the garage on a pool table. But I bought this like rickety drawing board for like $70. And I remember it was freezing cold. I had like this little like electric heater by my feet. And I just drew. I remember like, I didn't even want to take pee breaks, right? I didn't even want to eat. I just wanted to stay at the board and draw. It was crazy.
I love how you're gone a couple months and you come back and your room is gone. What does that even mean? Did mom turn that into a sewing room?
No, my sister fell in hard times too. We had a small house. There's a big family. So she fell in hard times. So they brought her in. So, first come, first serve, I guess.
Gotcha.
I got my own room. And the funny thing about that pool table room is it was a small garage. It was a 2-car garage, but you couldn't get 2 cars in that thing. And so the pool table pretty much took up the full room, right? And so my brother was he's 5 years younger than I am, and he's a partier too. And so he's still in high school, right? So he's in like the last 2 years, junior, senior year. So he's all with his like, rowdy friends and stuff. And, he had, a dad that had a pool table. So, he makes you pretty popular, right? So, they would get their brewskis and they would go and they'd shoot pool all night while I'm trying to work. It's like trying to work in like a bar, right? There's beer everywhere. And then it's like, I got to line up the shot. Art, do you mind moving? So you're like drawing, and he's got the pool cue, he's kind of like over your drawing board and trying to line up the shot. And I look back and I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of funny, but oh my gosh, it was so horrible.
It's amazing what you go through in your starving artist days, drawing on the floor, drawing on the back of a book, where at a dinner table, whatever, you didn't have all the equipment and space and shit that you needed, but
right.
Boy, you had the passion, you had the fire in your belly. Like, God damn it, I want to do comics, and I'm not gonna blow this.
Right.
You know, you mentioned deadlines, and the old school editors. If it's why they always use some of the same guys. Julie Schwartz always used Kurt Swan and Gil Kane, and he had these guys that he knew were always on time. They could always do it. And if you ever didn't turn in something on time to those old school editors, they took your Rolodex card and threw it out. There was no second chances unless you're Neil Adams.
Yeah. They cut you
And
loose.
even then, Julie was always on Neil's ass about deadlines and stuff.
Yeah, they would cut you loose. And I remember I was fortunate enough that Mike Carlin is a hard ass. He is, but he's kind of a hard ass in all the right places, and he really knows how to groom like new talent. And he was really patient with me, but it wasn't like I mean, it was like tough love stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't like coddling or anything like that. And so when I was working on Superman, doing finishes over Dan Jurgens, we worked in a team. There were 4 books. So there's like, Ordway's got his book, Dan and I got our book, and, Bogdanoff, and I forget who else, but there was like 4 completely different teams that did the 4 books. So we all had, like we saw what each other's were doing every week, and there was a lot of camaraderie. And so also we knew what was coming up as far as story arcs, because all 4 books, the stories connected. And so I remember I was having a hard time on a deadline, and so Mike was like, gonna have to pull you from the book. And I go, but I'm looking forward to that book, because I knew what it was. I can't remember what it was now, but he's like, gotta cut you loose. I think it was like the start of the Cyborg Superman. It was like a Fantastic Four type story that they were bringing into.
Oh,
Superman.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and so then he's like, "I'm gonna have to pull you," and he knew I was a big Dick Giordano fan, like hardcore. Like at the time, like I worshipped that guy. I became really good friends with him too, which was amazing. I still look back and I go, "How the fuck did that happen?" Right? Like, he was just so nice to me? He didn't have to be. And so, who was the fill-in inker? It was Dick Giordano. And so he told me that. That's how Mike worked, man. Like Mike was like, "Well, I'm gonna get your idol to work on Dan." And so the idea always is like, "Oh, that dude's gonna kick my ass, and I'm never gonna get my book back." Like there's always that fear. Like, that's why I don't know if you ever had this. Like, I never wanted to give up an issue, like a fill-in issue, because there's always the opportunity that somebody can come in, right, and do better.
Oh,
So
yeah.
So you did.
Don't give him the chance.
Yeah, you never gave him a chance.
Yeah.
And so, Dick came in, and it was good, but it wasn't stylistically what I was bringing. But it was enough. It was enough that I learned my lesson. I was like, I'm not going to do this ever again. And also, you lose a month's worth of income.
Sure.
That's one of the big things too, is like you kind of base things on, well, you used to be able to base it on 12 issues a year, worth of income. And then you could kind of base your life around that.
Right.
Marvel and DC sense, none of that stuff anymore. No one's got a long run on a book.
Right. Now, did you ever work with Dick? As in, did he ever ink you?
Yeah, he inked me and I inked him.
That's cool.
Yeah, I have a Human Target. I have 2 issues of Human Target that I penciled. Lynn Wein wrote.
Oh wow, the creators. That's cool.
Yeah, and then Dick inked me, and then years later there was the Lois and Clark wedding album that DC did. And so Dick did, like all these Superman guys did like 2 pages. So Mike, because Mike is like that, he's fair, but he's tough, right? And so he hooked us up, man. He hooked us up. So I got to ink Dick Giordano on 2 pages. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
And they were like Lois pages. He draws gorgeous women. I was like,
yeah,
oh shit, man, this is sweet. Yeah.
I got to have him ink me on an issue of Detective Comics. So he got to ink Batman, my Batman, which was like freaking amazing. To be able to work with him. And then at the end of his career, he actually ghosted some Rex Morgan MD strips for me that I inked over him.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too many people know that, I had him, ghost because I needed a break. I think I had started picking up some comic book work or something like that, and I needed a break on the dailies because that's a grind, man. And, so Dick came in, he was living in Florida, and he penciled, like, 2 weeks worth, and then I inked it to get it back on model in places. But it's so cool about this business, isn't it? It's like these people you grew up worshiping, at some point, they can become your friends or a colleague at the very least, and you get to work with them.
Yeah, the cool thing is, like, Pat Bastine, I think was her name.
Pat Bastien.
Bastien, yeah, and she used to come out, I think, once a month to California, and so she'd always say, like, come out to lunch or dinner, So she would, I'd drive up to LA, and she would treat. It was just one on one, like she'd just hang out with me, and we would have dinner or lunch or whatever. And when you're a starving artist, if somebody's gonna pick up the tab, it's like, oh hell yeah! And she was great fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
And I do remember this was like some years later. So this is Batman Returns, when that movie had come out, or was being made. And so Dick gave me a call out of the blue, and he goes, you want to hang out? I'm at the Universal Sheraton, and it's me and Pat, and we're just hanging out. We'll have dinner and whatever. And so, yeah, I drove up there. It was Pamela. She was my girlfriend at the time. We drove up there. He had a suite, and he ordered room service, and we hung out. And you know what? He told me the entire movie. Like, he told me the movie and everything, because he was there to kind of see what the goings on for the movie was and everything like that. So he told me he had like photos, like he showed me all this stuff. Like I still like, why? Like how? Like how did this happen, right? And so then he's like, I got to tell you though, Art, there's a scene where there's kitty CPR, like Catwoman like stops breathing, and all these cats jump on her chest, and they breathe into her mouth. He goes, I don't know how that's going to play out.
Pretty sure he did.
It was going to be bad.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a really great story. Pat Bastien was a great lady when she was working up at DC too. She was somehow involved in the checks, in making sure the checks got out. And one time we had a new puppy, and I got a royalty check sent to me, and the puppy ate it. And I had to call Pat Bastien and tell her that
I don't know what that's like. I'm going through
my
that.
dog ate my royalty check.
The dog ate my homework.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to need a new one.
Yeah, that was the thing about Pat. Like, if you needed anything, like, and she was always available, you could call her, you could get things done. And I think she was involved with, like, DC had a newsletter. Do you remember? It was like a freelancer newsletter, and it would go out, and it was just like a pamphlet. And I think she put that together as well. They really made you feel like family. Like, it's weird to say, but it really did feel like, he was your uncle or your dad, Pat, or not, like Dick was. Dick always had time when I flew into New York, like go in the office. And I know he probably called everybody my boy, but I always felt like this was special. Like, he only called me his boy. Hey, my boy. Hey, Art, my boy. Get over here.
You were his boy.
Gave me a big hug. Yeah. No, there was never any lap sitting or anything like that.
But DC was like that. People hear us rail about comics today, especially us in comicsgate. But what they don't understand is what we're railing against because of what it used to be. Yes, they were owned by Warner Brothers back then, but they were a completely separate entity. It was basically a small business, and the business is only as good as the people that were running it. And you had Paul Levitz, Dick Giordano, Jeanette Kahn running things. And they cared about the freelancers, more so than anybody. If you had a contract with DC, and this is going to sound unbelievable to everybody in the chat room, but they would give you an interest-free loan on your royalties.
I heard about.
I bought my house.
Ooh.
They gave me an interest-free loan of like $20,000 so that I could put a down payment on my house. And that they would just take it out of royalties every month. And then when it was paid off, then I would start getting royalty checks again. And it was just a simple thing, you know. I talked to the editor, and he said, well, we could do this, you know. And you know, they talked to the management, and it was no problem. It went through like maybe 2 or 3 people. I got the paperwork, I signed it, the check came, and that's how cool it was working for DC back then. Because yeah, all right, so you know, you're still work for hire, but they made up for that in certain ways by treating you with respect, you know.
Yeah, I in the early days, I never had an exclusive, but they had insurance. So you could get insurance
Hmm.
through the company.
Yeah.
And so as a young guy, I had better coverage than I do now. Like I had I had dental,
Yep.
I had everything, man. It was great. And you know, in lieu of, you know, an exclusive or any kind of signing bonuses or anything like that, it was better. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it gave you peace of mind.
And if you had an exclusive, you got that as well, plus a signing bonus. And all my daughters, all my babies were paid for. Uh, their births were paid for through the health insurance that I had with DC Comics.
Yeah, I had it for a few years, but I was always kind of back and forth. Like I worked Marvel, DC most of my career. So I did have an exclusive with DC after Marvel pretty much kicked me to the curb and said I would never work there again. So a lot of people kind of bag on Dick or Dan DiDio, but Dan always treated me really, really well. And so I got exclusives and I got a really killer page rate. And if I
Right.
ever had any problems, you know, he was always there for me. And then when Bob Harris got brought in, Bob and I go way back, you know, on all the X books and stuff like that. And he always took really good care of me in the X office.
Hmm.
Like just to your point about like homes and stuff like that, I couldn't secure a loan because I was a freelancer,
Hmm.
even though this was like the X-Men glory days. Like I had enough in the bank, and I'm not, this is not bragging, it's just like this is how it was, to pay for that house in cash. But I couldn't get a loan. And so I asked Bob if he could write a letter, if he could kind of try to explain what this freelance life was and how secure I was at this company and all that stuff. And you know what? He did.
Hmm.
You know, and that, and the guy that ended up writing the loan, Cable had just come out, so he was a Marvel guy and he knew comic books, so he understood what the you know what this
Yeah.
lifestyle was like, and actually did it. But up to that point, like Pamela and I, we had been rejected probably 3 times, like on loans, because
Right.
nobody would do it. Yeah, yeah.
Roger Rivera at DC was always so great um, about like doing that kind of stuff, writing. If you had a problem with a check, you could call Roger and it would get taken care of. DC letting him go over the last couple of years or something was just a huge, huge
Yeah.
loss to that company. You know, it just, again, another piece of the heart cut away.
And the sad part is, like every time I see Roger, man, he'd buy me food. So, or
You're
drink.
all about the free food.
Yeah, yeah, I still am, man. It's like if somebody's gonna buy dinner, you know, it's like on the company dime.
Do you remember the bar at the bottom when DC was at 666? There was the top of the sixes, which was a high
Yep.
end place, and then the bottom of the sixes was a bar. And I guess maybe they served other stuff there too. But I remember Sal Mandola and I going down there for happy hour, you know. And you know, I'm a poor starving artist, man. They would have like terrines with meatballs and the wieners and shit like that, and I would just load up on those meatballs, and Sal would buy me drinks, you know, on the DC card and stuff like that, and I'd go out there eating like a king, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Those were good times. Like, yeah, I ate and drank down, and then a few times upstairs. When they take you upstairs, and you really feel like you've accomplished something. Yeah. Is that was the one that had like the windows all the way around, right? You could like just go to the window and just look straight down at the
Yeah,
street. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was at the very top of what was that?
The Time Warner building.
57th 57th or 56 or 57th Street.
The avenues of the Americas or whatever. And
Yeah, they moved so many times, it's hard to keep it straight. At one point, they were at Rockefeller Center in the Time Warner building, and then they moved a couple times.
Yeah, maybe I'm confusing the two. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Rockefeller Center one that well.
Yeah, that was in the 70s, and the early 80s, because I went there with my brother. He and I showed up there I was still in school and stuff, and we took the elevator up to the floor that DC Comics was on. Then there was like a glass wall with the reception on the other side. So we just came out and got out and looked around. And we're like, yeah, look at us here, you know. It took a picture in the front of the building with the numbers on it and stuff, you know. And then, you know,
you know what? I don't think I ever went to that building. Now that I'm thinking about it, so I think it was the one that I thought it was the Time Warner building, but were they both the Time Warner building? The one in Rockefeller Center and the one on 57th, was that the street?
Yeah, it was either 56th or 57th. I can't remember.
Yeah,
and like Avenue of the Americas. It's been so long, you know.
yeah. It's funny. Like once I really got established, you know, and also I just think like the fun of New York City had just worn off. Like when I was young, like I'd like going there, and you know, but then when you get older, it's just like it's kind of a cesspool. Like it's kind of filthy, you know. It's not that great. I took my daughter there a few years back. I had a convention in New York, and so I took her into the city. And I was like, isn't this great? Because I thought, you know, because she's in her early 20s, she's an artist. And so we were going to go to the Met and, you know, all this other stuff. And so I thought she'd be like me, like, oh my gosh, look at this place. And she's just like,
unimpressed, huh?
Yeah, she was completely unimpressed. But she was impressed by the Louvre, not the Louvre, but the Met. Yeah, the paintings and everything. Yeah, we spent 2 days in there. It was great.
That's cool. Yeah, I used to take all my daughters to New York after high school as like a father-daughter trip. We'd go catch a Yankee game in the Bronx, and then I'd take her around the city and do tours and stuff like that. And you know, I think they liked it. You know, New York was cleaner back then, before de Blasio came in and destroyed the city and turned it back to 1975. And now it really is. It's back to being a cesspool.
Yeah, when I first went, it was like early 80s, and like all those movies from that time, you know, Times Square, everything, it was nasty, man.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty bad. You know, if you stood long enough in Times Square, you would see a purse snatching like every probably 20 minutes, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, we were taking a trip one time because I lived on Long Island, and my dad was a cop, and we were taking a trip to Connecticut, and he got off at the wrong exit. And my brother and I are in the back of the car reading comic books, you know, and he gets off at this wrong exit. And the only reason I knew it because I heard him say, "Ah, shit." And so I look up, and he reaches down and he pulls his 38 out and sticks it on the dashboard. And I'm like, what's wrong, Dad? My mom turns around. Nothing, dear, nothing. It's okay.
Keep reading your comics.
Keep reading your comics. Yeah. Drive faster. Drive faster.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. He didn't stop at any red lights. He just kind of glided through, you know, and he knew what he was doing. You know,
he knew. Yeah. And he's got his family there. Yeah. So you go into protection mode.
Yeah. And Nat Palazzo says Fort Apache, the Bronx, and that's where we got off. We got off in the Bronx, and this was in the late 1970s. So it was at that same period of Fort Apache.
Yeah,
that's funny. But yeah, so comics have come a long way since those times when we started there. We talked about, you know, how DC was a home and it was a fun place to be, and it's what we all strove for because there was a steady paycheck and all the other perks and benefits. Well, those days are gone, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. Last couple years, I think since the new 52, you know, on it was just kind of started coming unraveled. When Dan DiDio first started, he was spending money, he was getting people in, and there was some exciting stuff happening. But then, yeah, I think when they started wooing Hollywood, I think is when
Mhm,
things started really shifting around. And I think the comics became less of a priority, and I think it was kind of every man for himself. I think uh, Dan, Jim Lee, Bob Harris, what was her name, Diane Nelson,
mhm,
and even Jeff Johns on some level, they were just going for the cash grab, right? They were going to get the Hollywood money, and
mhm,
so comics be damned, we're gonna get some Hollywood money, and I'll tell you, man, I played in that arena. You can't win in Hollywood, man. They hold all the cards and they don't give a shit. They'll use you up, and they just don't care. And I think that's what eventually happened. And I think that's why DC, I think maybe if they would have had some more like movie successes, it would have sustained it a little bit longer.
mhm.
But when you have some bad movies come out and you lose that kind of money, um, I think your parent company starts looking a little harsher at you and like,
Mhm.
what are you doing here? Yeah.
Well, now that we know that the Titanic is sinking, what's a cartoonist to do, Art?
Comicsgate, self-publish. Yeah. Like
Crowdfund.
like you said,
Exactly.
yeah, tell your own stories, man. Be a
Mhm,
storyteller. And that's what it's all about. Like, I don't even think of myself these days as like a penciler, an inker, or a writer, just a storyteller, man. I'm
yeah,
just a storyteller. So whatever it takes to get the story out, that's what my bottom line is.
and speaking of which,
Yes.
it just so happens, folks, that our pal Art has a a new crowdfunding, campaign going right now, and it is going. Let me refresh this and see where we're at, since we got on the air here. 39,088, 39,008. Okay, we're gonna talk about it now, so we're gonna bump those numbers up. 475 backers with still 24 days left.
Yeah, so we're just kind of getting on to ending up well, it's like the first 5 days, I guess. Actually, it rolled into the sixth day, so I think we're just now starting the sixth day. So then
Right.
tomorrow will be the end of the first week. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Like I never thought, and I know you feel this because we date back so far. Like it- pe- I have to say this, and I have to keep saying this because there's people in Comicsgate, and there's younger people that are just like, "Oh yeah, well this is comics. This is not comics. This is an anomaly. Comicsgate is an anomaly. What we're doing right now, like what you're doing with Alien Alamo and the Chinook, these are anomalies. Like like if you went even 5 years earlier, you would have to go Kickstarter or Image Comics. This would not be happening. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
100,000, for a campaign, Alien Alamo. This
mhm,
would not be happening. And so I try to tell them, it's like, all the young guys, man, just know this is an exception to the rule of the industry. This is not the industry. This is not how it really works. This is a moment in time that I think if we can hold on to this for another couple of years, this will be history. We will be in the history books as far as people that broke away from the mainstream, went and did their own thing, and that Comicsgate was not so much an umbrella. Like, that's one thing about Comicsgate; it's really hard to explain. But that there was this Comicsgate movement that happened, and pretty much everybody, like all the young guys that were coming in, the old guys, the old guard, everybody did exceptionally well, and that there was a support group. There were backers, there were fans, there were readers that just latched onto it, man. Like,
mhm,
it caught fire.
mhm.
And this is a moment in time, you guys. This is not going to last forever, but this is a moment in time, a great moment in time.
Well, I differ, a little bit in that it's a paradigm shift. Will it last forever? Not in its current state, but it will morph and change and will become the new way of doing things, whatever that changes into. But I
Right,
think
right.
this is the elevator going up the building right now, and it's great to be in it because so many of our colleagues have not positioned themselves for success, and they're still holding on to old dogmas about what publishing means and how to get stories out to the public. And you know that's deck chair arranging on the Titanic, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah, and what I meant by that is just that it's a moment in time, like where we're at right now. Like trends go, like if you're lucky and it's a really successful trend, maybe you get a decade out of it, you know.
Hmm.
But like you said, the paradigm is shifting, and I think anybody who wants to succeed has got to start looking at these as templates. And you're starting to see more and more people like go in this direction, but it's kind of like what you talk about. It's like just be a storyteller, but there aren't a lot of people that are like that. You know, they're kind
Right.
of like contract players. They're like, I do this one thing really well, and so I fit into this like a cog in a machine. Like you know, like comic books is very kind of like assembly line, so they kind of fit into that, and then they kind of keep their heads down and they do that one thing. You know, like an assembly line, and so I've never really been that guy. Like I've always been that guy that looked outside of that. Like I always wanted to tell my own stories. I always wanted to do those things, but a lot of times the finances just didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there was no way you were going to make a living doing that. So then you end up going where the money is. I think if like in the early days when I was starting out, like in Renegade Press and things like that, if I could have made a living, I probably would have stayed there and told my own stories, and I would have been that guy from the very beginning, you know. But
Hmm.
you know, you have to pay the rent. You have to eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, Steven Siegel says Polito's been successful for years on Kickstarter. You guys can do it just too. Just keep an audience. Yeah, no, I completely agree. You know, you have to know your audience, and you have to tailor the stuff for that audience. If you try to be the everything to everybody, then you're just baking white bread. You
Yeah.
know, you know, pick a side, take a stand. You know, and go for that, and I think you'll be a lot more successful that way.
Yeah, know your audience and then tailor the product to that audience. I had a friend. I have a friend. He's a musician, songwriter, and comedian, and his name's Brian Hayner. And he told me early on, he's like, the key to success is it doesn't have to be a huge audience. It just has to be a very loyal audience. And then once you've established that, then pretty much just don't let them down. You know, make sure that you tailor things to what they want. Don't veer too far. You know, and pretty much just keep them happy. You
Hmm.
know, and then hopefully you can get more like-minded people and build off of that. But even if it doesn't, you know, it'll be okay. And I
Hmm.
don't know if this still holds true, but what was it? Terry, what's his name? The Strangers in Paradise, independent publisher.
Oh yeah, Terry. Oh,
Somebody in chat probably knows, but
yeah,
he's famously said, like, you know, if you can get 2,000 people, if you have 2,000 fans,
Terry
that
Moore.
Terry Moore, thank you, will buy your stuff on a regular basis, like even if it's like a calendar or a statue or you know a comic book, because you know we can't always, we're not monthly guys anymore, you
Hmm.
know, and doing what we do, I think it's pretty much impossible anyway. So then you kind of augment it with, you know, like a poster here or a you know a calendar or a statue or whatever. But as long as you put things out on a regular basis, and those are your fans, then you can actually make a living, you know, doing independent work. If you can cultivate that kind of you know fan base, and most of us, like Graham, you got what do you have, like 1,500 something like that, backers on Alien Alamo.
Let's see. Yeah, almost 1,600.
Yeah, yeah. So you know that when you release your next campaign, you'll be able to alert all them, let them know that,
Mhm.
you're going to do another comic, so on and so forth. And then hopefully they'll all come over with you, and then you'll just keep building and building it. And
Hey, if there's 8 of you in the chat room that haven't backed this yet, back Alien Alamo and get me up to 1,600 backers.
hell yeah, yeah. And the same like with Black and
Yeah.
White. I mean, we're closing in on 40K, you guys. So we're a little over 900 away, and that will get you your next stretch goal.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're close to a stretch goal. So, you know what? Why don't you tell everybody, because I know you're on a time limit here. It's close to 8 o'clock now. Uh, tell everybody what Black and White is. What's the concept and what is it? What's it about?
Okay, Black and White came out of my actually just observation about the comics industry. There was Frank Miller, there was Alan Moore, and they wrote great gray area heroes. But then there was a generation. There were people that came out after, and they didn't quite understand it. So the gray area characters became more like villains. And
Mhm.
so it got a little frustrating for me because I was like, these guys aren't acting like heroes. So that's where the tagline came from. In a world where law and order is often blurred to gray, justice can only be black and white. So I understood that times were changing, that like an altruistic, like, Steve Rogers or, Clark Kent, like these kind of characters were kind of considered corny, even though I never did. I never thought they were corny. But
No.
some people, even industry people, I had conversations and they thought they were kind of corny. So I was thinking, well, what if you teamed up a guy like that, like Steve Rogers, with a character that the ends justified the means? That was definitely a gray area, right?
Mhm.
And so, and then what if they were male and female? So then you can get into that whole yin yang thing. So then she's Chinese, she's half Chinese. So then, I can deal with, I could use that symbolism, the yin yang, stuff like that. So the idea is that you have this Reed Blackett, aka Black, and he's ex MI10, and MI10 is an old British Secret Service division, and it was around the Second World War, and they were weapons and high tech development for the war. And then after the war, it was dismantled. But I thought, since this is kind of a future tense story, and these guys are kind of like, there's robots in this world, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. So what if MI10 was now like it was still kind of technology, but it was like anti-robots, like an anti-robot division of the MI6, which is basically James Bond. So
Right.
it's kind of like Reed Blackett is he's 007 if James Bond was like a robot fighter. You know what I mean? And so this guy knows the psychology of robots. And so the idea is that there are robots in this world, but there's also illegal robots. So then you need like task force and like, a police force to go and basically do battle with these things to keep the peace. And so he's been doing that for a couple years, and he's kind of like kind of like police families. Like sometimes there's generations of like police officers or like firemen. So Reed is kind of like a generational spy. Like, so his father was a spy, and so his whole life was kind of in this spy thing. So he fell into that. But if you had a conscience, right? If you were, Steve Rogers, or if you were Clark Kent, how would you fit into being a spy? Not questioning, orders, killing, on command, all that type of stuff. So it started getting to him. He started like developing a conscience. And so then he just got out. And so then this, like the story proper, is him trying to get his life together, like trying to figure out, where do I go from here? So now he's an import exporter. So he's working with this upstart Chinese brewery where Whitney Sung and her uncle Yi run. And so, he's trying to build this company up and turn it into a success. Well, there's also this attraction between him and the lovely Whitney Sung. And so before anything could really take place, they can move forward with their relationship or whatever, her past comes back to haunt her. And so then it's horrible. You find out a little bit about what happened, and then Reed, kind of knowing from his spy experience, because there's things that he can never take back, things that he's done that he can never take back. And you're going to find that out in the next story arc. So he realizes that he can help her. So he's going to try to steer her in the right direction so that she can have justice, but not be scarred like by vengeance. You know what I mean? Like she wants to kill this dude. You know what I mean? She just wants to just end his life. And then she thinks that that's going to be the be all end all. But he realizes it's not. So the whole thing is like he's trying to arm her. Like that's why they weapon up. You know, she's got the suit, she's got the weapons and everything. And he's naive thinking that he can mentor her. But she's just kind of going along with the process, you know, with the program. And then as soon as she's free from him, she just goes hell bent. So I also thought, since, you know, we got the yin yang and we have that whole male female thing, we also just have this kind of different mindset going on between the two characters. You know, he is like justice, you know, we got to do this by the book, we got to do this the right way. And she's just like, let's just kill the son of a bitch and move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then we get that kind of a dichotomy of belief. There's the belief system. And so I don't want to give too much away, but you're going to kind of realize that Whitney's being a little bit selfish and that Reed is kind of left holding the bag. And that's what happens at the end of volume 1. So you get to see like her selfishness and her just, you know, her desire to be that gray area character, ends justify the means. What happens, the ripple effects to somebody who really does care, somebody who really does want to help. And this is somebody that she cares for, you know, and then she gets to see what it's doing to him. And so hopefully, you know, the second volume will, you know, she'll step up and she'll try to become more the hero, you know.
So there's a little bit of Hawk and Dove in there too, with the various, with the black and white and the gray tone, and the difference in ideologies, or at least their belief systems.
Yeah, I always liked Hawk and Dove. I thought that was a pretty cool concept. The main thing came out of the Green Hornet and Kato. You know, that's why she's more of a martial artist, and he's kind of a gizmo guy. You know, he's got the gas guns, you know, kind of thing.
That's cool. I love to hear the origins of where it comes from, what the initial inspiration was. So Green Hornet, huh? And,
yeah,
and a little Hawk and Dove.
Yeah, and then we have the Bullet, which is it's kind of like the Black Beauty. You know, it's a car that's got like gizmos and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
I just figured, like, if he's a spy and it's a future tense story, you know, we can get into all kinds of cool like laser pistols and, you know, like you know, high-tech gizmos and all that kind of stuff. So
that shit's fun because you don't have to reference it.
Exactly. I don't have to use real. I don't have to draw.
You know, you can make it up, you know.
Yeah.
I found the last 2 projects I've done, I've had to use a lot of reference, and I'm thinking, you know what, maybe my next one I got to do something gonzo where I can make everything up.
Yeah, I really like art direction. So I like worlds that are like that aren't necessarily real life. You know what I mean? Like everything is kind of heightened, or it's a reality that you kind of recognize, but there's a little nuances that are different. So that's why I wanted to do black and white in a future storyline as well. So then it's not our world per se, you know, it's a future. And then also I never age it. I never say this is 2030 or this is 2050. You know, I just kind of leave it open, because I also thought like George Lucas was pretty smart with Star Wars, where, you know, he's like in a galaxy far, far away. He never says Earth. He never gives you any points of reference that you can relate to, you know, our planet. They're huge.
And a long time ago.
Yeah, and a long time ago. Exactly.
So it takes place in the past.
Yeah, so there's all this kind of fairy tale stuff, and they look human, but maybe they're not. You know, you just don't know. And I think that those things also spark the imagination. I think storytelling now is a little too on the head. You know, they feel like they have to explain every nuance, every detail.
Right.
And I kind of like things that are a little bit more open-ended. And I do believe too, then as a reader or a viewer, then you can kind of bring yourself into it. You know, you can figure out answers for yourself, as long as still the storyteller gives you a complete beginning, middle, and end. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
you don't want to leave somebody high and dry, but where there's like these little open-ended things that you can kind of speculate.
Yeah, leave Easter eggs.
Yeah.
You know, leave things open for future stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, let's play the trailer.
Killer, yes. Yeah, this is Red Gaze in the video. Yeah, every one of these shots of White that you see, she's pretty much screwing shit up. He's messing up the plan. Like right here, she blows the roof off of this building, which pretty much tips her hat to the villains that they're trying to get the upper hand on. She's a handful, Graham. Yeah, so this should say back now. So this was for the sign up. This is an older video. So back it now, you guys. Black and White, number 2, Man versus Machine. I believe we can get to 40K by week's end. That would be amazing. And then there's a cool stretch goal sticker of Inko, which is the Hack Shack Studios mascot, and you'll get that. So we've already. Oh, cool.
Yep, there we go.
And so yeah, so we can get to that. There's already 2 stretch goals. So there's the trading card that you guys will already get, and then there's at 40K there'll be the Inko sticker.
That's great. That's great. That's how can you not want to back this after watching that video? I mean, it's like high octane. It's so cool, man.
It's pure adrenaline.
Yeah, yeah. I need a cigar right now to chill me out.
Does a cigar chill you out?
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
You don't have time for a cigar. You make time for a cigar.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend in the studio who was a cigar brandy guy. So I think that's the closest I've ever come to just kind of appreciating, that experience.
Oh, it's great. Hanging out with a friend with a glass of bourbon and a cigar, sitting by the fire pit.
Yeah, when we used to do shows together, we'd find one of those. I don't know if they still have them, like cigar bars, where you could get good.
Yeah.
Brandy. It's well ventilated, really nice, and you can just go there, hang out. Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm at shows out of town, I try to find if there's one nearby, to go to and hang.
Definitely.
Cohiba time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's Pedro Eng, and if you scroll down, there is a high octane comic, and it was drawn by the great Pedro Eng. So if you keep scrolling,
keep them doggies rolling.
Yeah, and there it is, right there, the high octane adventure. So this kind of animated style, drawn by Pedro Eng, and written by Von Klaus, who is Monster MD. And
yeah, I got that book.
Yeah, that concept in that book is incredible, man. Vaughn is a really good writer, and I still can't believe that he said yes. So he came up. I just threw him out like a basic idea, and he just ran with it, sent it out to Pedro, and Pedro's lighting it up, man. So
yeah, that's a nice piece, Pedro. Very, very nice.
Yeah, I dig the style. I like when your characters can kind of find new life, like in a different style or a different medium or whatever it is. So yeah, Pedro's an animator by trade, and so he's kind of bringing this whole animated feel to the book. And so the neat thing about the high octane is we can get away with more heightened stuff because it is an animated style, and not that the book that Joe and I are writing and putting together, the volume 2, is so based in reality, but a little bit more than the animated. So there's a lot bigger stuff that's happening in the high octane book, which is very cool.
So this is the featured perk, and yes. What do you get in that? You get the first edition. The new one, volume 2, and Pedro's version, right? Is that
Yeah,
what
you
you
get
get?
the high octane, and the one on the left, that's volume 1, but it's a second printing because the original volume we sold completely out of this book right here. So this, I think this is the only book that exists. I can't find any more, man. I guess it's a good problem to have that you sold out. But what my wife and I think is when we moved to Texas from California, that there was a box, because we both believe there were 50 books left. So I think somewhere along the line, it didn't make it to the house.
Oh,
Yeah. So I
so
just
you
have,
did a new cover for it for the
yeah,
reprint? Oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
exactly. So this is second printing with a brand new cover. Yeah.
Okay, so even if you have the first printing, you can get this one too because you got a new cover.
Right. And the book, all the books with three, all the tiers with 3 books or more come with an exclusive trading card to that, to those tiers.
Nice, nice. All right, so that's the straight up book. And here's the second printing. Kenneth Rocafort cover.
Yep.
Nice. Um,
The combo, the main book, and then
right.
the Rocafort variant.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. And so
He's
then
really
this,
good.
yeah, then this is the Rocafort. Yeah, he is. The main cover and the high octane book. And also, you guys, all these books are now in as add-ons. So you can get all the books as an add-on. I don't think the Capullo variant is, yeah, that's not an add-on, but all like the high octane, the Rocafort, the second printing, that book right there, and the main book, those are all there. So the 4 books are there. And then I took a cue from Graham Nolan, and I'm offering layouts. So yeah,
Oh,
you keep
Aaron's
scrolling.
going to do that too now. I've created monsters.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get good ideas, man.
There we go.
Yeah. So, and
Nice.
these are only as add-ons, so you can add on the layouts, and they're only 40, and they're not traditional thumbnails, which are only about this big, like Neil Adams thumbnails were crazy. So they're half of an 8 by 11, 8.5 by 11, sheet of paper.
Okay.
So I usually draw them in 2s so I can see how the pages butt together. So all the
Right.
pages that butt together, I always draw them together. So then what I did is I kind of cut them in half so they're kind of book size, because they're almost actual size of the book itself. And so what we'll do is we'll put them, they'll fit into a backing board with the plastic bag, and we'll put those in, and they'll fit right into the box. So it's original artwork without additional shipping. So there's no shipping cost with these. So if you want to back a book and then just do this as an add-on, there's no additional shipping, and we're gonna ship these bad boys, like I said, in the plastic and the backing board, so they don't get destroyed.
Cool. This is what my layouts are like. Here, let me change this too. So I do the layout. This is just 11 by or 8.5 by 11 paper, and
Yeah.
then I print it out as a template, and then I do my sketches on this side, and on this side I write my dialogue. And that way I can see what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah, I pretty much do the same thing. So here, we're just going back and forth here. So here's my layout. So yeah, they're on the same.
Hold on,
like 11.
Let me add you to. Hold on a second.
Into the
Here.
stream here. Yeah.
I'm gonna solo layout. There we go.
So then I kind of, with a red marker for the full bleed, I kind of just put the full bleed. And so then what I started doing is I got like Hack Shack layout board, like paper. So I basically print the format, kind of like a blue line idea. So I know what the size of the paper is. So when I go to actually draw on the board, I can just blow these up, and they'll be identical to the 11 by 17 sheet. And so I kind of do the same thing. You can't see they're in pencil, but there's dialogue, basic dialogue all along the bottom and the sides. Yeah. So it looks like we kind of work real similar.
Yeah. There's only so many ways to skin the cat. So
yeah. I thought you did everything digital, like all the layouts and
I do typically, but this project, I wanted to offer the layouts as originals, but then I also wanted to. I'm gonna the layouts are gonna be printed as an ash can, so the
Oh, wow.
entire book will be the layouts with the script dialogue on the other side. So, and you'll read it sideways so that you could see the page exactly like I held it, like
Yeah.
that. So you would open up the book, like this, and that way this page or this dialogue and then this artwork matches up together.
Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
do something similar, but I'm doing it as a stretch goal. So if we can, I forget what the stretch goal number was, but so you'll get Joe Fulton and my, a story, written story breakdown, the plot, and then you'll get the layouts that coincide with it, and then you'll have the book. So I think it'll be fun for people to be able to go, oh, here's how it started. Here's how the layouts kind of maybe deviated a little bit, and then how the
Exactly.
layout deviated even from the final production,
Hmm.
which is the final page. And I love that work in progress stuff. I think it's fantastic. I think even if I didn't do this for a living, I would still be interested in it, because I don't know if you're like me, Graham. I watch like how things are made, like factories. I watch this hour
Oh, I
show.
love that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that just showed how they make copper tubing. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, that's how they make copper tubing. That's badass.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with how stuff that we use every day is created. It's just
Yeah, like
amazing. And then the other thing I wanted to see a show on who makes the machines that make that stuff. You know?
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
very specific thing, this copper tubing manufacturing machine. So, who makes that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that had to have been made from scratch. Like, there's not exactly like, a tool that existed prior. Like these guys are making this stuff up from scratch. And the thing that still amazed me about the copper tubing is that this stuff's molten hot, right? And so it's kind of like in like this trench, and then this kind of mechanical hand grabs the side of it, and it goes through a trench of water. And so then it grabs this thing and then pulls it like that, and it cools that metal off so fast that it doesn't bend or anything. Like it's straight perfectly. So it's kind of like extrusion molding. It's kind of like Play-Doh Fun Factory. It's just kind of coming out, this thing grabs it and just booked. That thing moves so freaking fast across this trench of water. And I was like, holy shit, man, that's really cool.
That is cool. What is this here? Speaking of Aaron, Dodson just canceled on him. Aaron will be doing cover B. They got to him.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh, no. Well, this will be good for Aaron's business.
yeah. The best thing that could happen to Aaron was those guys going after him.
Well,
Yeah.
I wish I would have asked Dotson to do a cover for me so I could say,
Yeah.
yeah, he bailed out, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, like doing what we're doing, Graham, I think you have to have, there's a type of personality that actually can just it's what is it called? Like a leap of faith. Like you have to be willing to just like take this leap of faith, and go into this completely different direction, and just trust that you're going to land on your feet. And I do think like when I got in comicsgate like some years back, there was like this, like as stable as it seems now,
Hmm.
it was like the Wild West, man. Nobody knew what was going to happen from minute to minute. Now there's actually kind of, it's a little bit more stable, and it seems like it's a little bit more like you can understand how it functions and things. But then, oh my gosh, things are changing every couple weeks. There'd be this new craziness that would happen. And so I do think like it is turning into, it is getting organized. It is turning into something. And I do believe that when you and Andy Smith and Billy Tucci, kind of all the professional guys, start coming in, I think it's kind of becoming stable. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's actually kind of this, I don't know what I can't think of another word for it, but it just kind of stabilized. And it seems like that everything that we're building now isn't going to go away, that we can actually, like, this is here to stay. then we can, that's a solid platform. And then we can kind of make another platform and so on and so forth. Where before it kind of felt like it could be taken away at any moment, right? Like, somebody could come in, say some crazy shit, cancel us, and then that would be the end of it. But now I think there's such a strength in it that I almost defy them now to come in and try to shut us down. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I don't want them to, I'm not wishing it, but
Yeah.
I think they're going to get a little bit more than they bargained for than they did in the past.
Well, as more and more names come on board, it offers legitimacy to it, you
Yeah.
know, and I think that's very helpful in not only in reaching backers, because you have to build that platform of backers that will trust what you're doing,
Yeah.
and the more of these projects that get done and fulfilled on time and everything, that goes a long way in relieving some of the stress on the backers, because they're entrusting us with their hard-earned money, for a while until it, because they're paying up front. So they're entrusting us with that money to produce really good product for them, and I don't
And,
think anyone would take that lightly.
yeah, and financial success does not hurt, because let's face it, we live in a society that respects the dollar sign. So, if you're actually putting up good numbers, like we've been fortunate enough, it gets attention, and once again, I think it breeds um, jealousy too, like those people that we were talking about that just don't have the faith. They can't take that leap. They can't
Mhm.
do that. I think it makes them angrier and angrier because they have to be part of the machine. They have to be part of the mainstream. They have to be a piece of something. They can't be an island.
Mhm.
Uh, like I said, man, you say you got to be a storyteller. You have to be all these things.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
a lot of people just aren't that complete.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
I posted something on Twitter the other day, and a lot of people didn't quite understand what I said. I thought it was pretty simple and straightforward. I said, I'm a writer that draws, not an artist that writes. And what that means is that story comes first. The art skills are already there, but you have to develop the storytelling skills, which are different from being a writer is different than storytelling visually. It's a whole different discipline. And if you want to do it, you have to learn that discipline the same way you learn the discipline of having to draw. You know, it's another a talent that and learned how to ink. Those are very different disciplines, and you have to train yourself to do that stuff. A lot of artists feel that they can write because they can tell stories with pictures, but they don't. There's a lot of them that are horrible writers because they're just like blunt instruments that hit you over the head. They don't understand nuance or character development or plot, or there's so much stuff that they're just seeing in an oblique way, that's how the stories come out. That's just right there in your face.
Right.
So what I say is, you have to work that and develop that skill, just as hard as you work to learn how to draw.
Yeah, and that's why, like, these days I don't think of myself as anything other than just a as a storyteller, and that's pretty much it. And to be honest, there's been this part of me that just never had the opportunity to do these things before, and so I'm really loving doing it. Like, it's my favorite thing to just brainstorm with Joe Thunderbuns, on the black and white volume 2, or like brainstorm with Von Klaus, on this high octane book. It's just great. And also, I can write, I have ideas, but I do need a sounding board. I do need a partner. So I usually always work with a writer, because I do see there are shortcomings there. There is that side where I would be a fool not to take advantage of somebody that actually does know how to do those things.
Mhm.
So I can brainstorm with them. I can throw things out. I can hold my own, in storytelling conversations. But they kind of know how to structure and maybe like nuance things like you were talking about that I don't. And so then they can just kind of intuitively just kind of steer the ship into those directions without any confrontation and stuff. And the reason I say that is because I have worked with writers that do kind of get confrontational about it. But Joe has not been that, and Von Klaus as well. It's like whatever the best idea, that's the one we go with.
Right.
It's not my idea. It's not your idea. It's just the best idea. And if you can work with somebody that's fair-minded and can see that, then you don't even need to get into those areas. You know, you're just kind of, yeah, this is the best idea. You know what I mean? There's no debate. There's no heated conversation. It's just kind of, yeah, this is it.
Yeah. I started contributing ideas early on Detective to Chuck, and then started co-plotting and then co-writing with him. So I kind of studied at Chuck's feet, which you can't have a better mentor for that.
Right.
And he taught me a lot, working side by side with him, reading his scripts and stuff like that. And, thankfully I learned it.
Yeah, I had roommates that were writers. So I was roommate with John Francis Moore, who was Howard Chaykin's writing partner. So in the day, I got to hang out with Howard and John, and those guys were not only writing comic books, they were writing for TV and film as well.
Right.
So I got to see, a lot of those different disciplines and have conversations with them. So I don't know. It's like how we were talking about, early DC Comics. Like I just kind of look back and I think, wow, how did all this stuff happen? Like it just seemed like it was just one thing after another, like meeting this guy or hanging out with this person. And then you realize, like now we can kind of connect all these dots throughout our career and go, that's what led up to this moment in time. That's what got us to this place. And that's why what you know, and that's why you're the artist you are.
Let us see where we're at here. 39165. 39165. All right. So we're still the same there.
It's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good. Yeah, I just really, I'm hoping that we can get to that 40K by the end of the week. So we still have Thursday, we still have Friday. So we got 2 days to get to that 40K.
Now, are you sending out weekly email blasts to everybody that's in your contact list?
Yeah, I've done 2 updates, and yeah, I do have to. You mean as far as like your mailing list?
Yeah,
those guys. Yeah, I'm going to do one this week. Yeah, blast that out and let them know what's going on. Kind of as like, yeah, this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I do that once a week. I do an art drop, or tell them about some new perk that's up, something like that. And
so how do you communicate with them? What do you use?
Well, I have my Compass Comics website is through Wix.
Oh,
and,
okay.
So they have an email program called Ascend, which is an upgrade and subscription, that type of thing. But it allows me to import all my my contacts in there, and I can send email campaigns. I can build email campaigns right there through my website. It's fantastic. So I don't have to pay extra for Constant Contact, or I had Constant Contact for a while, but it was so expensive compared to just the minor upgrade to my Wix account, my website, which I'm already paying for. And then I add an extra, I don't know, $15, something like that. Now I got this great email program to send out stuff to.
Yeah, I have a Wix account too. I have artbythibert.com. And there's a little bit of a mailing list that I have from that site, but I didn't know about this Ascend, so I'm going to look into that and upgrade and see if I can do that, because that's a great idea. Because I also got in trouble, kind of like what Aaron Lepresti did, and I think John Malin did as well. Like we're trying to use that MailChimp, and that is not intuitive, man. That is a hard thing to get down. And so when we sent out, our alerts and stuff for the mailing list before we launched this campaign, everything went through, but the message wasn't attached to the email. So we did it. We sent, we wrote it up, we attached it, but apparently something happened and it didn't get through. So I would like to try to use something other than, like a MailChimp idea. So I am going to look into that Ascend. But in the meantime, if anybody's listening, it's all going to go through the updates. And I know the updates only go to backers, but anybody that's checking out can see the updates as well. So in the meantime, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I've already done 2 updates.
Art, there's a question for you. How can I add the new layouts without refunding my original, the original book that he backed?
If you just kind of backed it again, like back to tier, then you could do it. But I think some people, what they do, and maybe Graham could chime in, is they'll cancel their order and then they'll reorder the same thing with the new add-on. So the cool thing is if you do it quickly, we won't freak out. But when we see those cancellations, they do freak us out. But what has happened so far with the campaign is I haven't lost any backers, which is great. But you guys, with with the add-ons that I've been putting on throughout the campaign, you have been asking for refunds and then getting the money back, and then basically tailoring your order with those add-ons. So I would say, refund and then back everything again the way you want.
Well, here's an idea, Art. Instead of doing that, and instead of having the layouts only as an add-on, create its own perk. But no books are involved with it. So anybody who's ordered a book now could just go and order the layouts.
Oh, that's true. Then they don't have to order another book.
They don't have to cancel anything. They can just come back in and add, and do another contribution. And this time they're picking that as the perk.
You know what? Is it Son of Liberty Radio? Hold off. Tomorrow I will have that perk up. I'll have a perk up for the sketch, and then you can just do what Graham said, and we'll do it that way. I think the reason I didn't do it is because it's kind of hard to, when you go to fulfill, then there'll kind of be 2 orders because there'd be 2 different numbers. And so sometimes it's harder to figure out, oh, this is the same guy that ordered this and ordered that, and then to try to combine them into one. But that's on our half. So we'll work that out. But hold off on that refund. And I'll have that tier up tomorrow. Tonight's going to be a little tight because I got a pontificators, but I'll have that up first thing tomorrow morning for you. So thanks. Perfect. And thank you, Graham. Yeah, I had thought about that, but I didn't realize, because I was thinking the add-on would be perfect, but if somebody already backed, they can't have access to the add-ons. They don't have access to it. So yeah, that's the best way to do it. Perfect.
Yeah. We aims to please.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You had one more question. Somebody wanted you to explain the featured perk.
The featured perk is it's basically issue 1, issue 2 with the high octane book. So the main book, volume 2 with the main cover, and then there's volume 1 with it's the second printing with a new cover, and then there's the high octane animated adventure book. And then with that featured tier, you also get a trading card, and they all everything comes signed.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And speaking of MailChimp, Rob Younce says, I'm a cybersecurity expert. MailChimp is bad. Most of their IPs get blocked because of IP bounce backs.
Yeah, it was so weird, man. It took hours to figure this shit out. And the worst part about it is, my wife and I, we're reasonably, knowledgeable with the technology. We can kind of fudge our way through. But when things like this that are so complicated, it kind of make you doubt yourself, you feel a little stupid. And then when you start talking, when I talk to Aaron and John, they're like, no, this program is pretty messed up. It's hard.
Yeah, I never used them. I had Constant Contact, and that was pretty intuitive, but it was more expensive. But the one I use through Wix now is so great. I can reuse stuff. You know, I could reuse a previous campaign and just change the images, change the text, or the links are still all in there, and it's super easy. And
so like with Indiegogo, it has that URL or whatever it is, so you just click on that, right, and you get that, and then you just bring that over to that Ascend on your Wix, and then you just
mean to link it to the campaign in the email?
Yeah, your campaign mailing list.
Yeah. You can add a link anywhere in there. You can add it to an image. You can add it to a button. You can add it to a phrase or a word, whatever.
But I mean, when you bring it over to your Wix site, so you bring your mailing list over from Indiegogo. How did you bring that list over?
Well, you download it as a CSV file.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. You just click on that CSV, and then you just kind of bring that over to Ascend, and then
you'll upload it into Ascend.
Yeah, and then it just kind of takes care of that, and then once it's in that program, then when you just hit send, you just hit every one of your mailing lists.
Yeah, you can send all. You could send various lists. Like if you had one of your CSVs was backers from volume 1, and your other list is your mailing list from volume 2. You could send those as two separate things. Like if you were trying to target specifics, or you could just combine it and just hit all, and it'd go off to everybody that's in the contacts.
Perfect. Yeah. That's what I'm gonna do as well. But you said that Ascend is an upgrade, right?
Yeah, Wix uses Ascend as their
mailing list.
Yeah. What's the word I'm looking for? It's their marketing campaigns.
Okay.
Marketing campaigns. So it's like a program within the web site that creates marketing campaigns for you.
Sweet. Yeah.
And you can, depending on how many you think you'll use a month, it depends on how much you'll have to upgrade to, but if you do 20 a month, you get the program with 20 a month, that's more than enough. Because if you're only sending out
one out 20, it doesn't go out to 20, but you can send up to 20 of the. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Yeah, that's I'm definitely going to do that. Yeah, I was wondering how everybody does it. It's like, I contact, I got my mailing list. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you send those out? Like, that's the harder thing. It's like, how do you send out like 1,000, people on a mailing list? That's
you can't use Gmail for that, or you have to use these programs for that kind of stuff. Yeah, and they help you too, because like it'll give you suggestions, like for your title, it'll tell you, you have a good chance of this being bounced, or of it going into spam filters. Here's what you need to do to change it to avoid that.
Right.
So that it's kind of helpful that way too.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna look. I got all these notes here, man. Tomorrow, like I was. You ever have these days? It's like, tomorrow I'm just gonna draw all day. Like I have a few shows that I'm gonna do, but I'm just gonna draw all day. I already have a list that my whole morning is already is gone. So
I typically don't start drawing till like lunch, just after lunch, because my mornings, I go to the gym in the morning. When I come back, I'm doing all kinds of marketing things, tweeting or Facebook message, creating assets, to send out, all that kind of stuff that spends the day, in the marketing mode. And then I get to drawing later on.
Yeah, I have a similar, but I'm trying to get myself to the board at about like 10:30.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't always work, but yeah, sometimes it is around noon, getting into work. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got to shift hats, you got to put the other hat on, the marketing hat off, and you got to put the artist hat on, or the writer's hat,
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Well, hey man, thank you so much for having me. The Storyteller show that you've put together is brilliant, and you have all kinds of great guests and stuff that come on. So man, you're taking YouTube by storm, man.
Oh,
You just came in and just like started hitting home runs.
I just got to get bigger audience. That's all.
Well, I'll tell you, YouTube's like Twitter. It just takes for freaking ever.
Yeah.
Unless you can kind of land on something, it goes viral, and then you can but even that's just temporary, you'll
Yeah.
get people in, and then, once they realize, well, that was just maybe that one show, then they'll back out. And so I think slow growth is the best way, because then, those people are, they're going to be there every week.
Yeah. I love the chat because I love seeing all of the folks that, come in and they're real loyal. They pop in all the time. And I really appreciate you guys out there in the chat, your comments and your jokes. And I hope you have fun when we do the shows, but I know I have fun seeing you guys in here. So thank you so much. And thank you, Art, for coming on. I appreciate it. I love having my professional brothers on here because we all talk like we're sitting by ourselves in a room, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, I think we've done this I think especially you and Billy talk about it, just like hanging out at the bar after a show,
Yeah.
Just hanging out, talking shit. And I didn't realize how much information is actually passed on, at those bars, like just stuff that we've talked about towards the end of this show. That's how you figure stuff out.
Yeah.
There's no freaking book. There's no book we can check out and read and figure all this stuff out. So it really is kind of like friends relaying stories.
Yeah.
And
A fraternity of brothers in the same frat house, I guess you'd say.
Exactly. All right, my friend.
Well, buddy, you have a great show tonight. You're going to do your pontificators?
Hell yeah.
All right. So everybody zip on over to Art's channel and watch him entertain you some more.
We're going to get into detail. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, wait. I got one more thing I got to take care of. Sphinx
hell yeah.
and his ring shippers. Hail Art, another storyteller legend. Thanks, Graham. Graham, possible to get Lee Weeks and Scott McDaniel on at some point in the future. Lee Weeks has been on. So go to my YouTube page and scroll back through. Scott, I could definitely get Scott on in the future. He hasn't been on yet. But
I'll get in the chat and I'll harass Scott because I've inked him in the past. He's really good talent, man.
Oh, I really like Scott's stuff a lot. Powerful, real powerful.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say we're going to get into the details of Substack and see if that truly is going to save, or be a creator haven, in the future. So that's what we're going to get into on Pontificators tonight.
Okay, that sounds like a great show.
All right, guys.
Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you on the Professionals tomorrow. It's on Andy's show.
Andy, yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.